Mia Vanderberg, a billionaire grandmother, made the receipt of the inheritance by her Playboy grandson Don Vanderberg conditional on him marrying Lisa DeVries, the daughter of the cook Eva DeVries. But nobody imagined that. What would you do if your fortune's future depended on an unexpected marriage? And what if, along the way, something even more surprising changed everyone's fate? Find out how far this twist-filled story goes. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching the video from. And don't forget to subscribe. In the grand foyer of the mansion, where chandeliers sparkled like stars against the high ceiling, Mia, the formidable matriarch, stood at the center of her opulent domain. The air was thick with anticipation as family members gathered, their expressions ranging from curiosity to apprehension. Mia's reputation for being both astute and uncompromising preceded her, and today, she wore a particularly stern expression. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice commanding attention. "I have called you here to discuss the future of our family and the legacy that I intend to leave behind." There was a murmur among the attendees, a mix of intrigue and trepidation. Don, her Playboy grandson, lounged against a marble column, his disinterest palpable. He had always found these family meetings tedious, a mere formality that usually ended with Mia reiterating her expectations. Mia's gaze landed on him, piercing through the crowd. "Don," she said, her tone suddenly sharp, "you will pay particular attention to what I have to say." Don straightened, feigning interest as he raised an eyebrow. "What's the matter, Grandma? Did you finally decide to leave me the yacht?" Mia's lips curled into a thin smile, but her eyes betrayed no humor. "No, Don. What I'm offering is far more significant than mere material possessions." She paused for effect, allowing the tension to build in the room. "I am announcing my will today, and it comes with specific conditions." A collective hush fell over the room. Family members exchanged glances, the atmosphere thick with uncertainty. Don pushed himself off the column, his curiosity piqued despite his earlier bravado. "Conditions? What are you talking about?" "I have decided that you must marry Lisa, Eva's daughter, in order to inherit your fortune." Mia's words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Gasps erupted from the gathered family members. Don's face morphed from confusion to incredulity. "Lisa? The cook's daughter?" he exclaimed, incredulous laughter bubbling up. "You can't be serious, Grandma. You expect me to marry her? For what? A few recipes?" Mia's expression hardened. "This is not a joke, Don. I am serious. You have squandered enough of your privileges, and it's time for you to take responsibility. Marrying Lisa would not only bind our families, but also ground you in reality. You need to learn the value of hard work and commitment." Don shook his head in disbelief. "You can't force me into this. I'm not some pawn in your game." "Consider it a challenge," Mia replied, her voice unwavering. "You can choose to embrace this opportunity or continue down your current path of indulgence and recklessness. The choice is yours, but know this. Without Lisa, you will not inherit a single cent." As Mia's ultimatum echoed through the room, Don felt the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. He turned to leave, his heart racing with a mix of anger and disbelief. "I need some air," he muttered, striding away from the gathering. The fresh air outside was a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere of the mansion. Don leaned against the balustrade, overlooking the sprawling gardens that had once offered him solace. His mind raced, grappling with the absurdity of his grandmother's demand. Lisa was not just beneath him socially. She was a stranger, someone he had never considered in that light. "Are you all right, Don?" A voice broke through his thoughts. It was Sarah, his cousin, her brow furrowed with concern. "Just peachy," he replied, sarcasm dripping from his words. "Did you hear what Grandma just pulled? Marry the cook's daughter to inherit my fortune." "It's ridiculous." Sarah crossed her arms, leaning against the balustrade beside him. "Maybe it's not so ridiculous. Lisa's a great girl. She's hardworking and talented. You could do worse." "Sure, if I wanted to settle for mediocrity," Don scoffed. "I'm not ready to play house with someone who scrapes by in the kitchen." "Maybe you should give her a chance," she suggested gently. "You might be surprised." Don rolled his eyes, dismissing her words. I'm not marrying anyone, let alone her. I'll figure something out. There's no way I'm letting an ultimatum dictate my life. Later that evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Don found himself seated across from Lisa. She was busy serving the meal, her focus entirely on her task, but every now and then, he caught glimpses of her passion. The way she expertly plated the food and the spark in her eyes when she discussed the dishes made his heart skip a beat, even if he would never admit it. Wow, this looks incredible, he said, more to provoke her than to compliment. What is this? Another one of your fancy experiments? Lisa looked up, her expression a mixture of surprise and wariness. It's a traditional dish from my mother's kitchen. I thought it might be nice for everyone to try something different. Different? Huh? I suppose that's one way to put it, he quipped, smirking. Why do you always have to be like this, Don? Lisa said, her voice steady despite the tremor of hurt that lingered beneath the surface. I'm just trying to do my best. Your best? For whom? The family? I doubt they'll remember your name in a week. He shot back, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction at her discomfort. Lisa's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Don saw a flicker of defiance. You might be surprised. I have dreams, you know. I want to be a chef, and I'm going to make that happen regardless of what you think. Dreams? Huh? Good luck with that, he replied, leaning back in his chair as if her aspirations were nothing more than a childish whim. The tension between them crackled in the air, and Lisa turned away, focusing on the other guests, her cheeks flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. Don felt a pang of guilt, but he quickly brushed it aside. Later that night, as the guests departed, Don retreated to the backyard, staring at the stars that twinkled above. He couldn't shake the feeling that Mia's ultimatum was more than just a test. It was a catalyst for change, whether he liked it or not. He thought about Lisa, her determination, and the way she poured her heart into her cooking. Maybe there was more to her than he had initially considered. As he stood there, lost in thought, he overheard voices coming from the kitchen window. Curiosity piqued. He edged closer, straining to listen. I just don't understand why she would want me to marry him. Lisa's voice was tinged with frustration. He doesn't even respect me. Don't let him get to you, Lisa. Eva, her mother, replied softly. This is a chance for you. You're talented, and you deserve to be recognized for it. But at what cost? Lisa countered, her voice breaking slightly. If I marry him just for money, what does that say about me? Don's heart sank. He had never considered the emotional toll his grandmother's ultimatum took on Lisa. The realization hit him hard, and he felt an unfamiliar sense of empathy blossom within him. He turned away from the window, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. Maybe Mia's plan wasn't just about wealth or control. Perhaps it was an opportunity for both him and Lisa to grow, to understand each other beyond the superficial labels. As he walked back to his room, he felt a flicker of something he hadn't anticipated. Curiosity about Lisa's world and the possibility of discovering who she truly was, beyond the boundaries set by their families. The night settled around him, a curtain falling on the first act of a story that promised to be far more complex than he had imagined. As the morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the culinary school, Lisa stood in front of her class, a mix of excitement and nerves bubbling within her. The aroma of fresh herbs and sizzling vegetables surrounded her, each scent igniting her passion for cooking, a passion that had only grown since she had first set foot in the kitchen of Mia's mansion. All right, everyone, her instructor called out, a seasoned chef with a penchant for perfection. Today, you'll be creating your own signature dish. I want you to showcase not just your skills, but your personality. Lisa's heart raced. This was her chance to shine, to show not just her classmates but herself what she was capable of. She glanced at the ingredients laid out on the counter. Vibrant bell peppers, fresh basil, and ripe tomatoes. Inspiration struck her like lightning. She would prepare a stuffed bell pepper, a dish that reminded her of her childhood, filled with flavors that told stories of family and love. As she began chopping the vegetables with precision, her hands moved deftly, each slice a testament to the countless hours she had spent honing her craft. The kitchen buzzed with energy, laughter, and a hint of friendly competition. Lisa could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, fueling her determination. "Lisa, you're going to blow us all away with that dish," her classmate, Sarah, encouraged, glancing over at her with admiration. "Thanks. I just want to make something that means something to me," Lisa replied, her focus unwavering. Meanwhile, Don sat in a nearby cafe, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. He stared out the window, watching the world pass by, a stark contrast to the chaos of his own life. The weight of his grandmother's ultimatum pressed heavily on his shoulders, and he felt adrift, unsure of what path to take. He had spent his life surrounded by luxury, but lately, he had begun to question the depth of that life. His friends had long since moved on to their own pursuits, and Don found himself at a crossroads. He knew he was expected to step into a role of power and privilege, but the thought of marrying Lisa still filled him with confusion. She was ambitious, driven, and unlike anyone he had ever met before. She challenged him, made him think about what truly mattered. But how could he reconcile his feelings for her with his family's expectations? With a sigh, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found Lisa's number. She had been on his mind constantly since the day they met at the family gathering. Her laughter, her passion for cooking, everything about her intrigued him. But what could he say to her? He hesitated, his thumb hovering over the screen, before ultimately deciding against it. Instead, he took another sip of his coffee, the bitterness matching his mood. Back at the culinary school, the students were finishing up their dishes, and the instructor moved around the kitchen, tasting each creation. When he arrived at Lisa's station, she could feel the anticipation build in her chest. She plated her stuffed peppers with care, garnishing them with a drizzle of homemade tomato sauce and a sprinkle of fresh basil. "Lisa, let's see what you've got," he said, a hint of curiosity in his voice. As he took a bite, Lisa held her breath, her heart pounding loudly in her ears. The seconds felt like hours. Finally, the instructor's eyes widened in surprise. "This is exceptional. You've combined flavors beautifully, and the presentation is stunning. You have a real talent." The praise washed over her like a warm embrace, and a smile broke across her face. "Thank you. I've always loved cooking, and I wanted to create something that tells a story. Keep this up, and you'll go far in this industry," he said, nodding approvingly before moving on to the next student. With her spirits lifted, Lisa couldn't help but think of Don. She wondered if he would ever recognize her passion and dedication. The thought of him attending one of her cooking demonstrations brought a smile to her lips. Perhaps he would see her in a different light, not just as Mia's cook's daughter, but as someone with her own dreams and aspirations. Later that evening, Don decided to attend the cooking demonstration Lisa was hosting at the culinary school. Something deep inside urged him to see her in action, to understand what drove her. As he entered the auditorium, the hustle and bustle of students and faculty filled the air. He spotted Lisa at the front, her confidence radiating as she spoke to the audience about her love for food. "Cooking is not just about ingredients. It's about creating memories," she said, her hands moving expressively. Don watched, captivated by the way she commanded the room, her passion infectious. As she began cooking live, Don felt a stirring in his heart. He noticed the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke about her dishes, the way she poured her soul into every movement. It was both mesmerizing and humbling. In that moment, he realized how shallow his own life had become, filled with parties and meaningless conversations, while Lisa was building a future filled with purpose. After the demonstration, he approached her, feeling a mix of apprehension and excitement. "Hey, that was incredible, Lisa," he said, his voice genuine. She turned, surprise flickering in her eyes. "Don, I didn't expect to see you here. I wanted to see what all the fuss was about," he replied, a playful grin on his face. "You really have a talent for this." "Thank you. It means a lot coming from you," she said, her cheeks flushing slightly. "Seriously, you've got something special. I didn't realize how passionate you were about cooking," he admitted, his gaze sincere. Lisa shrugged, a hint of shyness creeping in. "I just want to create food that brings people together. It's what I love." In that moment, Don felt a shift within himself. He had always seen Lisa through the lens of his grandmother's demands, but now he was beginning to see her for who she truly was, a talented, ambitious woman with dreams that extended far beyond the walls of Mia's mansion. "Maybe I should come to your next demonstration," he suggested, a spark of hope igniting within him. "I'd like that," Lisa replied, a smile breaking through her initial hesitation. Weeks passed, and Lisa's hard work began to pay off. She entered a local cooking competition, pouring her heart into her dishes and earning rave reviews from the judges. She felt a surge of confidence that she had never experienced before, and the recognition motivated her even more. After winning the competition, the phone call from the Michelin star restaurant came as a surprise. They were impressed with her culinary skills and wanted to offer her a position in their kitchen. "Lisa, this is amazing. You have to take it," Sarah exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. "I can't believe it. This is everything I've dreamed of," Lisa said, her voice trembling with disbelief. As she hung up the phone, her heart raced with possibilities and fears. This was the opportunity she had longed for, but it also meant stepping further away from the life she had known. She thought of Don and the unspoken connection that had grown between them. Would he still see her once she became a chef in a prestigious restaurant? Would he understand the sacrifices she would have to make? Meanwhile, Don was at a crossroads of his own. The realization that he had feelings for Lisa weighed heavily on him, a truth he could no longer ignore. He began to question his lifestyle, the parties, the superficial relationships. As he watched Lisa thrive, he felt a deep longing to be part of her world, to support her dreams in any way he could. One evening, while sitting in his lavish apartment, Don picked up his phone and typed a message to Lisa. "I just wanted to say how proud I am of you. You're doing incredible things." He hit send, his heart racing as he waited for her reply. Lisa's response came almost instantly. "Thank you, Don. It means a lot to have your support." In that moment, Don realized that he would do anything to be with her, to stand by her side as she chased her dreams. But the shadows of his grandmother's ultimatum loomed large, and he knew he needed to confront the reality of his situation. As he prepared to meet Lisa for dinner that night, Don's mind raced with thoughts of the future. Would he have the courage to tell her how he truly felt? Would he be willing to defy his grandmother's expectations for the sake of love? As he stepped out of his apartment, he felt a mix of fear and excitement, unsure of where the path ahead would lead but ready to embrace the journey. The evening sun cast a warm glow over the bustling streets of the city as Don made his way to Lisa's restaurant. The tantalizing aroma of spices and freshly baked bread wafted through the air, pulling him closer to the entrance. Tonight was significant. He had finally gathered the courage to express his admiration for her culinary journey. As he pushed open the heavy wooden door, the cheerful chime of a bell announced his arrival, and he was immediately engulfed by the vibrant atmosphere of the place. Inside, the restaurant was alive with the sounds of clinking cutlery and laughter. Don scanned the room, his eyes landing on Lisa, who was at the kitchen pass, expertly plating a dish. She moved with precision, her focus unwavering even amidst the chaos. Don felt a swell of pride watching her, recognizing how far she had come since their first meeting at the family gathering. "Don, you made it." Lisa beamed, her face lighting up as she spotted him. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked over, her excitement palpable. "I wouldn't miss it for the world. The dishes look incredible tonight," he replied, gesturing to the bustling kitchen behind her. "I've heard nothing but good things. Thanks. It's been a lot of hard work, but moments like this make it worth it." She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "You should see the reviews. People are starting to notice what we're doing here. Not just people. Lisa, you're making waves in the culinary world." "I'm really impressed," Don said, his sincerity evident in his tone. As they stood there, the energy of the restaurant swirling around them, Don felt the weight of their complicated history pressing down on him. He took a deep breath, deciding to take the plunge. "I wanted to talk to you about something important." Lisa's expression shifted slightly, curiosity mingling with caution. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about how much you've accomplished and how much I admire you for it. I know things between us are complicated, given my grandmother's ultimatum, but I want you to know that it's not just about that for me anymore." Lisa's eyes searched his, uncertainty flickering across her features. Dawn, I appreciate that, but we're still in a tough spot. Your family, your grandmother, they see me as just a cook's daughter. I don't want to be part of a game to fulfill their expectations. I get that, Dawn replied, stepping closer to bridge the invisible gap between them. But I want you to know that I see you for who you are. You're more than just a means to an end. I admire your passion, your talent. I've started to realize how much I care about you. For a brief moment, the air between them thickened with unspoken feelings. But then, Lisa pulled back, a look of conflict on her face. Dawn, it's just not that simple. We're both caught in this web of expectations. I don't want to be just a pawn in your family's game. He felt a pang of disappointment, but understood her perspective. I'm not asking you to be a pawn. I want to build something real, something that's ours. But I can't deny the pressure I feel from my family, especially my grandmother. She has this vision, and I'm stuck in the middle. Lisa's gaze softened, but she still held her ground. I can't be a part of that vision if it doesn't include my own dreams. I'm working hard to prove myself, to be recognized for my skills, not just as your potential wife. I respect that. I really do, Dawn said, his voice earnest. But I also hope you can see that I'm trying to figure out my own path. It's hard for me too, Lisa. I want to support you, but I'm also trying to navigate this world my family has built. Their conversation hung in the air, heavy with unfulfilled longing and aspirations. Just as silence threatened to engulf them, Lisa's phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the moment. She glanced down, her expression shifting to one of urgency. I have to get back to the kitchen. We're in the middle of a dinner rush. Of course, Dawn replied, his heart sinking slightly. I didn't mean to distract you. You didn't. I just need to focus, she said, a hint of regret in her voice. But I appreciate you coming here. It means a lot. As she turned to head back, Dawn watched her go, a mix of admiration and frustration swirling within him. He understood her hesitations, but couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something significant. He needed to find a way to bridge the gap between their worlds. Over the following weeks, Dawn became a regular at Lisa's restaurant, often slipping in during lunch hours to catch a glimpse of her in action. Each visit deepened his appreciation for her talent, and he found himself slipping into a routine of supporting her efforts. He would sit at the bar, watching as she orchestrated the kitchen with grace and authority, her passion igniting the space around her. One afternoon, after a particularly chaotic lunch rush, Lisa finally found a moment to breathe. She spotted Dawn seated at the bar, a bright smile breaking through her fatigue. Hey, you're back again. I swear you're becoming my best customer. Just trying to keep up with the best chef in town, he teased, leaning back in his seat. You make it hard to stay away. Flattery will get you everywhere, she quipped, wiping her brow with the back of her hand. But seriously, it's nice to see you. How's everything going with your family? Dawn hesitated for a moment, weighing the honesty of his response. It's the same old story. My grandmother is still pushing for me to settle down and fulfill her vision. But honestly, I'm starting to question it all. Lisa's expression turned serious, her brow furrowing slightly. What do you mean? I mean, I've spent my whole life doing what my family expects of me, but I'm beginning to wonder if it's what I truly want. Coming here, seeing you work so hard, it's inspiring. It makes me think about what I want outside of my family's shadow. She studied him closely, her heart racing at the vulnerability he was displaying. Dawn, that's a big realization, but you have to be careful. Your family won't take kindly to you stepping away from their plans. I know, he said, his voice low, but I don't want to live my life just to please them. I want to find my own path. And part of that path is you, Lisa. You've shown me what it means to pursue something you love. Lisa felt her heart flutter at his words, a mixture of hope and fear swirling within her. I appreciate that, but we still have the obstacle of your grandmother's expectations looming over us. We can't ignore that. Maybe not, but I'm starting to believe that I can carve out my own destiny. And I want you by my side, he declared, his resolve clear. As their eyes locked, the tension between them crackled with unspoken possibilities. They were on the precipice of something deeper, but the weight of their circumstances loomed large. The night of the gala arrived, a grand event celebrating Lisa's achievements. The restaurant was adorned with twinkling lights, and the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Don could hardly contain his enthusiasm as he watched Lisa move through the crowd, her presence radiating confidence. She had transformed into a celebrated chef, and everyone wanted a piece of her success. "Don," Lisa exclaimed, spotting him amidst the throng of well-dressed patrons. She made her way over, her eyes sparkling. "What do you think? Is it too much?" "Not at all. You look incredible," he replied, genuinely awed by her transformation. "This place is buzzing. You've really done it." "Thanks. It feels surreal," she said, a hint of disbelief in her voice. "I never imagined we'd get this far." But just as they began to revel in the moment, Don felt a familiar presence behind him. He turned to see Mia approaching, her expression a mix of disapproval and scrutiny. The atmosphere shifted, tension crackling in the air. "Don, there you are," Mia said, her voice cool and authoritative. "I've been looking for you." "Grandma, I was just—" Don began, but she cut him off. "I need to speak to you." "Now," she insisted, her eyes narrowing as she glanced at Lisa. "In private." Lisa's smile faded, replaced by concern. "I'll give you two a moment," she said softly, stepping back. Don felt a surge of frustration as he watched Lisa retreat, the warmth of their connection cooling in an instant. He turned back to his grandmother, forcing himself to maintain composure. "What is it, Grandma?" Mia's gaze was steely, a flash of determination in her eyes. "You need to remember what's at stake here, Don. This is not just about you. It's about our family legacy. I don't approve of your association with her. Why can't you see what I see?" Don challenged, his voice rising slightly. "Lisa is talented and driven. She deserves recognition, not just as my potential wife, but as a chef in her own right." Mia crossed her arms, her expression unyielding. "Your feelings don't change the fact that she comes from humble beginnings." Don stood in the vast, sunlit living room of his grandmother Mia's mansion, the walls adorned with priceless art and echoes of past family gatherings. His heart pounded against his chest, wrestling with the weight of his obligations and the burgeoning feelings he had for Lisa. The air was thick with tension as he prepared to confront Mia about her ultimatum. "Grandma," he began, his voice steady but laced with uncertainty. "We need to talk about this ridiculous condition of yours." Mia, regal in her demeanor, looked up from the plush armchair where she sat, her sharp eyes narrowing as she studied her grandson. "Ridiculous? Don, this is not about your whims. It's about responsibility. You must understand that the family legacy cannot be treated lightly." Don clenched his fists, a mix of frustration and confusion swirling inside him. "It's not just about the legacy. It's about me, about my life. I don't even know Lisa that well. How can you expect me to marry her?" Mia sighed, her expression softening slightly. "You think I enjoy making these demands? You have no idea what I've sacrificed to build this family, to maintain our status. I lost everything once, and I won't let that happen again. You must marry Lisa to keep our family secure, financially and emotionally." "Emotionally?" Don echoed, incredulous. "You think forcing me into a marriage will bring emotional security? What about my happiness? What about Lisa's?" Mia's gaze hardened again. "Happiness doesn't come from freedom, Don. It comes from duty. You will learn that in time. Lisa is a good girl, but she comes from a different world. You need to unite your worlds for the sake of the family." Don felt a surge of anger, but suppressed it. He could see the pain hidden behind Mia's authoritative facade, the scars of a past filled with loss and control. "What happened to you, Grandma?" he asked, his voice softening. "What made you this way?" Mia's eyes flickered with something akin to vulnerability. "I was young once, just like you. I fell in love with a man my family disapproved of. I lost everything because I followed my heart instead of my duty. I vowed never to let my family suffer again. Then why put me through this?" Don pressed, desperate for some understanding. "Why make me choose between love and obligation?" "Because, Don," Mia said, her voice trembling slightly. "I want you to be strong enough to make the right choices. I want to protect you from the mistakes I made. You may not see it now, but this is for your own good." Don turned away, staring out the grand window at the sprawling gardens, struggling to reconcile his love for Lisa with his grandmother's demands. The sun glinted off the meticulously trimmed hedges, a stark contrast to the chaos in his heart. He felt trapped between two worlds, one defined by love and desire, the other by duty and expectation. Meanwhile, Lisa was in the kitchen of her burgeoning restaurant, a sanctuary where the aromas of spices and fresh ingredients enveloped her like a warm hug. She was in her element, sprinkling herbs over a dish that would soon be featured on the menu. Yet, beneath the surface of her culinary triumphs lay an unsettling thought: Don. She hadn't spoken to him since their last encounter at the gala. The way he had looked at her, with admiration and longing, had stirred something deep within her. But then there was Mia's warning, a chilling reminder of the strings tied to their relationship. "Hey, Lisa, how's it going?" Eva, her mother, entered the kitchen, wiping her hands on a flour-dusted apron. "You're working hard today." "Just experimenting with some new recipes," Lisa replied, forcing a smile. "I want to make sure everything's perfect for the opening night." Eva watched her daughter, a hint of concern in her eyes. "You've been so focused lately. Is everything okay with Don?" Lisa paused, the mention of his name causing her heart to flutter and ache simultaneously. "I don't know, Mom. Things are complicated. I feel like I'm in a tug-of-war between my dreams and the expectations surrounding me." Eva nodded, her expression understanding. "Don is a good boy, but you need to remember your worth. You have built something incredible here. Don't let anyone take that away from you, not even him." "I know," Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it's hard to ignore how things have changed between us. I can't shake the feeling that I'll always be seen as just the cook's daughter." "Then show them who you really are," Eva encouraged. "Your talent speaks louder than any title. Don't let anyone define you." That night, as Don lay in bed, he couldn't shake the image of Lisa from his mind. He replayed their last encounter, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke about her dreams, and the way she pulled away from him, as if he were a danger to her aspirations. The thought of losing her gnawed at him, pushing him into a restless sleep filled with uncertainty. Days turned into weeks, and Lisa's restaurant began to gain traction. She poured her heart into every dish, her passion becoming her shield against the tumult of her relationship with Don. Yet, despite her success, the absence of his support felt like a gaping hole in her heart. One evening, as she prepped for dinner service, Lisa stumbled upon a hidden drawer in the back of the kitchen. Inside, she discovered old family recipes and handwritten notes, each page infused with love and tradition. But as she sifted through the papers, she found something unexpected: a letter addressed to Mia from a distant relative, detailing the family's history of control and manipulation. Her brow furrowed as she read through the lines, uncovering the dark legacy of Mia's choices. The words painted a picture of a matriarch who had orchestrated relationships, molding them to fit her vision of success. A wave of betrayal washed over Lisa. Had Don been just another pawn in this game? "Lisa?" Eva's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Are you okay?" Lisa quickly tucked the letter back into the drawer, her heart racing. "I'm fine, Mom. Just organizing some old recipes." Eva raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "You've been quiet lately. You can talk to me, you know." "I know," Lisa replied, forcing a smile. "It's just, everything feels heavier now. Don and his family, their expectations." "Sweetheart, remember that you control your own destiny," Eva said firmly. "Don't let anyone dictate who you should love or how you should live your life." As the weeks passed, Don's attempts to reach out to Lisa were met with silence. She was focused, driven by her ambitions, yet the absence of their connection left her feeling hollow. The restaurant flourished, but in the quiet moments, she ached for the warmth of his presence. One evening, Don stood outside the restaurant, watching the lights twinkle through the windows. He wanted to burst through the doors and tell Lisa everything: the truth about his feelings, the conflict with Mia, and how he was ready to defy the odds for her. But as he approached, He hesitated, noticing the vibrant atmosphere inside. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, the passion that radiated from the kitchen. It all felt like a world he could never fully belong to. "Don," a familiar voice called out, pulling him from his reverie. It was one of Lisa's friends from culinary school, a bubbly girl named Tessa. "You're here to see Lisa, right? Come on in." Before he could respond, Tessa ushered him inside, and Don found himself engulfed by the energy of the restaurant. Yet, as he scanned the room, his heart sank. Lisa was busy plating dishes, her focus unwavering. She didn't notice him standing there, and he felt like a ghost in a place he once felt welcomed. "Hey, Lisa," Tessa called, drawing her attention. "Look who's here." Lisa turned, her expression shifting from surprise to something unreadable. "Don," she said, her voice tinged with cautious warmth. "I didn't expect to see you. I wanted to talk," he said, stepping closer, the tension palpable in the air. "About what?" she asked, crossing her arms defensively. "Your grandmother's ultimatum?" Don winced, the mention of Mia's name hanging heavily between them. "Can we not discuss that right now? I miss you." Lisa's gaze softened for a moment before hardening again. "Missing me doesn't change the circumstances, Don. You're still caught between your family's expectations and your feelings for me." "I know," Don replied, desperation creeping into his voice. "But I want to fight for us. I want to figure this out together." "Do you really?" Lisa challenged, her eyes searching his for sincerity. "Or are you just trying to appease your conscience?" Don opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. Could he really convince her that he was committed? That this wasn't just about fulfilling a family obligation? I want to be with you, Lisa," he finally said. "But I can't ask you to wait for me to figure this out." Lisa's expression softened, but the hurt lingered. "I can't keep holding on to something that feels so uncertain. My dreams are becoming a reality, and I need to focus on that. Then let me support you, D." The morning light filtered softly through the windows of Lisa's small apartment, illuminating the bustling kitchen where she had spent countless hours perfecting her craft. Today, however, the air was thick with worry. She stood at the counter, her hands deftly chopping vegetables, but her mind was elsewhere, consumed with thoughts of her mother, Eva, who had been hospitalized the previous day. "Come on, Lisa, focus," she muttered to herself, trying to shake off her anxious thoughts. Just then, her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Don. "Don, hey, how's your mom? I'm here if you need anything." Lisa's heart raced at the sight of his name. Despite the complications of their relationship, Don had been a steady presence during this tumultuous time. She had never expected to find such support from him, the Playboy grandson of the formidable Mia. With a deep breath, she replied, "Lisa, thanks, Don. She's still in the hospital. I'm trying to keep my head straight, but it's hard." Moments later, her phone buzzed again. "Don, I'm coming over. We'll figure this out together." Lisa's stomach fluttered with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. She wiped her hands on a towel and moved to the living room to wait for him. The minutes felt like hours as she paced, her thoughts racing. What if her mother didn't recover? What if this was the beginning of something darker? In what felt like no time at all, the door swung open, and Don stepped inside, his usual confident demeanor slightly subdued. His dark hair was tousled, and he wore a simple white t-shirt that accentuated his athletic build. He looked around the apartment, taking in the modest decor, then focused his attention on Lisa, whose expression was a mixture of gratitude and unease. "Hey," he said softly, stepping closer. "How are you holding up?" Lisa shrugged, trying to muster a smile. "I'm managing. Just trying to stay busy, I guess." Don reached out and gently squeezed her shoulder. "You don't have to pretend with me, Lisa. I can see you're worried. I'm here for you, really." The sincerity in his voice made her heart swell. "Thank you, Don. It means a lot that you came." He nodded, his blue eyes searching hers. "I know this is tough. If you need to talk or just want some company, I'm all in." As they settled on the couch, Lisa found herself leaning into him, comforted by his presence. "It's just, my mom is everything to me. I don't know what I'd do if..." Don's gaze softened, and he wrapped an arm around her. She's strong, just like you. Whatever happens, you won't be alone. The warmth of his embrace washed over her, and for a moment, the weight of her worries lifted. But soon, reality crept back in as her phone buzzed again. It was a message from the hospital. "Excuse me," she said, pulling away reluctantly. She read the text and felt her heart race. "They're asking me to come in. They found some complications." Don's expression grew serious. "Do you want me to come with you?" Lisa hesitated. "I don't want to put you in a difficult position. You have your own life, Don." "I want to be here for you, Lisa," he insisted. "You're not putting me in a difficult position. I want to support you. Let's go." With a grateful nod, she grabbed her jacket, and together they headed out, a mix of hope and uncertainty hanging in the air. At the hospital, the sterile environment felt suffocating. The smell of antiseptic and the distant sounds of beeping machines heightened Lisa's anxiety. Don stayed close, his presence a steady anchor as they navigated the maze of corridors. "Stay strong," he whispered as they approached Eva's room. His voice was low, but the warmth of his words resonated deeply within her. Pushing open the door, Lisa found her mother lying in the hospital bed, pale and fragile, but still alive. "Mom!" she exclaimed, rushing to her side. "Lisa, sweetie," Eva croaked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry." "Shoo, don't apologize. I'm just glad you're here," Lisa replied, stroking her mother's hand. Don hovered at the door, giving them privacy but still within reach, a silent guardian. As the hours passed, Lisa and Don took turns sitting with Eva, sharing stories, laughter, and tears. They reminisced about family dinners and the warmth of home-cooked meals. Each story seemed to bring a flicker of life back into Eva's eyes, and Lisa felt a surge of hope. Later that night, after a long and exhausting day, Don and Lisa stepped outside for some fresh air. The cool breeze felt refreshing, clearing the heaviness that had settled within them. "Thank you for being here today," Lisa said, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "I don't think I could have done it without you." Don turned to face her, a serious expression on his face. "I want to help you, Lisa. I care about you." More than I expected. Her heart raced at his words, and she took a step closer, searching his eyes for reassurance. "Don, this is all so complicated. Your grandmother—" "I don't care about the inheritance," he interrupted, his voice resolute. "I want to be with you, and I want to support you in whatever way I can. You deserve to chase your dreams." Lisa's breath caught in her throat. "You mean that?" "Absolutely," he affirmed. "I've seen you grow into someone incredible, and I want to be part of that journey, no matter what it takes." His honesty brought a flood of emotions to the surface, and Lisa felt a surge of warmth. "Don, I appreciate that. But what about your family? Your grandmother?" Don took a deep breath, visibly wrestling with his thoughts. "I'll figure it out. I'm done living in her shadow. I want to choose my own path, and that path leads to you." Moved by his determination, Lisa felt tears prick at her eyes. "You have no idea how much that means to me." They stood in silence, the weight of their feelings hanging between them, until Don took a decisive step forward. "I want to ask you something." Lisa's heart raced. "What is it?" "Will you marry me?" he blurted out, his sincerity evident. "Not because of the inheritance, but because I love you. I want to build a life with you, regardless of what anyone else says." Lisa's heart leaped in her chest, but a shadow of doubt flickered in her mind. "Don, I don't know. Your grandmother won't approve. And what if this all goes wrong?" "Then we face it together," Don said firmly, his gaze unwavering. "I'm not afraid of Mia. I'm afraid of losing you." The gravity of his words settled around them, and Lisa felt her resolve begin to crumble. "I need time to think." "Take all the time you need," he replied, his face softening. "I'll be here, ready to fight for you when you're ready." As they walked back into the hospital, hand in hand, Lisa felt a spark of hope for the future. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but with Don by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came their way. Together, they would navigate love, ambition, and the complexities of family, forging their own destiny amidst the uncertainty. Don stood in the grand living room of his grandmother Mia's mansion, its opulence overwhelming as he felt the weight of her gaze upon him. The exquisite chandeliers sparkled as the afternoon light filtered through the ornate windows, casting intricate shadows on the polished marble floor. He clenched his fists, his heart racing with a mixture of defiance and determination. "Mia," he began, his voice steady yet laced with an undercurrent of anxiety, "I can't marry Lisa just to secure my inheritance. If that's the only way you'll support me, then I'd rather walk away from this entire life." Mia raised an eyebrow, her expression a blend of surprise and skepticism. "You're serious?" she challenged, leaning forward in her plush armchair, her fingers steepled in thought. "You would give up everything for a girl who started as a cook's daughter?" "Yes," Don replied, his voice stronger now. "I've seen what Lisa can do. She's not just a cook. She's a brilliant chef with dreams that go far beyond my family's expectations. I love her, and if being with her means giving up my inheritance, then so be it." Mia's eyes narrowed as she studied her grandson. "You think love is enough to sustain you? This world is cruel, Don. Money opens doors, and without it, you'll struggle. Maybe it's time I face that struggle," he shot back, his jaw clenched. "I'm tired of living a life dictated by your rules. I want to forge my own path, even if it means starting from scratch." For a moment, silence hung heavily in the air, the tension palpable. Mia's expression softened slightly, and Don caught a flicker of something that resembled respect. "You've grown up, haven't you?" she murmured, almost to herself. "I didn't expect this from you." "Maybe that's the problem," Don said, his tone softer now. "You've always underestimated me. It's time you see me for who I really am." Mia leaned back, contemplating his words. Don could feel the shift in the atmosphere, a crack in her rigid facade. "You want my blessing then?" she asked finally, her voice low and contemplative. "I want you to see that Lisa is right for me," he replied, his heart pounding in his chest. "Not because of her background, but because of who she is. She's strong, ambitious, and she makes me a better man. If you refuse to accept that, then I'm done playing this game." Mia's gaze searched his, and for an instant, Don wondered if she would relent. Just as he began to think he had made progress, she straightened, her expression resolute once more. "If you choose this path, it will not be easy. You will face backlash from our family and the community. Are you prepared for that?" "I've faced enough challenges to know what I want," Don said, his voice unwavering. As they stood there, locked in a battle of wills, Mia's expression shifted again, this time to one of contemplation. "Very well," she finally said, her tone serious. "You may think you are prepared, but there is more at stake than just your inheritance." With that, Mia turned away, and Don's heart sank. He had expected a grand revelation, a sign of acceptance, but all he felt was the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. Later that day, as Don wandered through the mansion's gardens, the vibrant colors of blooming flowers surrounded him, yet his heart felt heavy. He thought of Lisa, her laughter, her passion for cooking, and the way she illuminated the dullest of days. Just then, his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from Lisa. "Can we meet? I need to talk to you, asterisk." Don's heart skipped a beat. He quickly replied, agreeing to meet at the cafe where they had shared so many dreams and hopes. When he arrived, Lisa was already seated, her hands nervously fidgeting with the napkin in front of her. The cafe was bustling with patrons, the aroma of fresh pastries mingling with the rich scent of coffee, but all he could focus on was her. "Don, Lisa started, but he interrupted her, needing to share the weight of his heart first. "Lisa, I spoke to Mia today," he confessed, pulling out a chair and sitting across from her. "I told her I would walk away from my inheritance if it meant losing you. I can't do this without you by my side." Her eyes widened in shock, and Don held his breath, awaiting her reaction. "You did what?" she exclaimed, her voice a mix of admiration and disbelief. "Don, do you realize what you're saying? You're willing to give up everything?" "Yes," he replied earnestly, leaning closer to her. "You deserve someone who believes in you, not just as a means to an end. I love you, and I want to build a life with you." no matter what it takes. Lisa's expression softened, but there was still a flicker of concern in her eyes. What if it doesn't work out? What if Mia doesn't accept us? I'll face whatever comes, Don vowed, his voice steady. We can build something together, and if she can't see how amazing you are, then she doesn't deserve to be part of our lives. Lisa smiled, but it was tinged with uncertainty. You're brave, Don, but I don't want you to sacrifice everything for me. I want you to be happy, even if it means stepping away from your family. I won't be happy without you, he insisted, reaching across the table to grasp her hands. We can make it work. Together. Just then, Mia entered the cafe, her presence commanding attention. Don's heart raced as he watched her approach, her expression unreadable. She stopped at their table, and for a moment, the world around them faded away. Don, Mia began, her voice surprisingly calm. I've been thinking about what you said earlier. What do you mean? Don asked, his pulse quickening. Mia took a deep breath, her gaze shifting between the two of them. I have a proposal, she said, a hint of a smile creeping onto her lips. I've watched you both grow, and perhaps my expectations were misguided. If you truly believe in this love, then I will give you my blessing. Don felt his heart soar, disbelief mingling with joy. You're serious? Yes, Mia replied, her tone softening further. But I need to see that your commitment is genuine. This will not be easy, and I will not tolerate any games. Prove to me that your love is stronger than the weight of our family's expectations. Tears welled in Lisa's eyes as she looked at Dawn, her heart flooding with hope. Thank you, Mia, she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Mia nodded, her expression shifting from stern to supportive. Now, go and build your future. But remember, love alone is not enough. You will face challenges, and I expect you both to rise to them. As they embraced, Don felt a wave of relief wash over him. This was the moment they had both longed for, a chance to be together, to build their lives without the shadow of wealth casting doubt over their love. In that vibrant cafe, a new chapter began for Don and Lisa, one filled with promise and hope. They knew the road ahead would not be easy, but they were ready to face it together, hand in hand, with the unwavering belief that love was their true fortune.